It began with laughter, the kind that fills a military cafeteria at midday, thick with the smell of coffee, metal trays, and overcooked pasta. 100 conversations tangled into a low roar, boots scraped against concrete floors, and sunlight cut through the tall windows like narrow blades of gold. Among the crowd of Navy SEALs, hardened faces wore the fatigue of the field, their voices blending into one loud hum of pride and competition. At a corner table near the back, a group of SEALs sat slouched, their uniforms marked with years of service and scars they wore like invisible medals. Their humor was sharp, their confidence unbreakable, and yet that afternoon a silence was about to carve through their laughter like a blade through fabric. She walked in quietly, a woman in uniform, pressed, precise, not a wrinkle out of place. Her presence didn't announce itself, it commanded itself. She moved like someone who had learned to blend in the background until the moment called her forward. A few heads turned, then a few more. Whispers followed, curious, not unkind, but laced with the usual undertone that always greeted someone who didn't quite belong in their brotherhood. She carried her tray past the line of tables, her movements calm, deliberate. Her eyes were steady, unreadable. That kind of stillness unnerved people trained to notice every small detail. It wasn't timidity, it was control. And then it happened. Hey, one of the SEALs called out from across the room, his voice light but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "You look too calm for a recruit. What's your rank, ma'am?" His tone was joking, but the timing made it cruel. The laughter around him swelled like a wave behind the taunt. A few smirked, others looked away, uncomfortable. No one expected her to answer. She stopped, her tray didn't shake, her hand didn't tremble. She turned slowly, the kind of turn that made the air itself hold its breath. The laughter tapered off, dying in fragments, one voice at a time. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Her gaze found his, level and unflinching. "Commander," she said softly. The word fell like a hammer through the room. Every sound vanished. Forks froze midair. Someone dropped a spoon, and it clattered like a gunshot in the silence. The SEAL who'd spoken, broad-shouldered, with sun, creased skin and the confidence of countless missions, blinked, as if he'd just been told gravity no longer applied. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Around him, the others straightened instinctively. The energy of the room changed in an instant from arrogance to awe, from playfulness to quiet shame. She didn't wait for a reaction. She turned back toward her seat, walking with the same calm she'd entered with, the command insignia gleaming subtly under the fluorescent light. No dramatics, no smugness, just truth, unspoken but heavy. The SEALs exchanged glances. That kind of rancor, her rank, meant she'd seen more than any of them. She'd led men into storms they hadn't survived. She'd earned that insignia not in comfort, but in blood and silence. And the one who had spoken, now pale with realization, couldn't meet her eyes again. In the corner of the room, an older officer who'd been watching quietly set down his coffee and murmured under his breath, "They'll remember that one for a long time." He was right. They would, because sometimes the most devastating answers are spoken softly, and sometimes the lesson isn't about rank at all, but respect. But beneath that calm reply, there was more to her story, one no one in that cafeteria could have guessed. The reason her eyes carried that weight, the reason silence had become her sharpest weapon, before she was commander. Before her presence could silence a cafeteria, she had been a name whispered in training halls, Lieutenant Elara Stone, a woman whose file was classified deeper than most missions, a name tied to operations no one officially acknowledged. Years earlier, on a night without stars, her team had been ambushed along the northern ridge of a war zone that barely existed on any map. The mission had gone wrong, not because of strategy but betrayal. A call intercepted, a location leaked, and 12 men trapped in enemy fire. She had been seconding command then. The official commander was hit in the first wave. With radio lines dead and chaos all around, Elara had taken control not by shouting orders, but through absolute, calm certainty. Her voice had cut through gunfire like a compass in the storm. One by one, she'd led them through the shadows, saving 9 lives before the extraction team even arrived. But she had made one impossible choice. When she'd gone back for the 10th man, her closest friend, her mentor, she found only his weapon. His last words had been an order, "Get them home." She obeyed. In her silence after that mission, people mistook her quiet for detachment. But silence was her memorial. Her grief had hardened into discipline, and her command was born not from ambition, but debt to those she couldn't save. Back in the cafeteria, when the SEAL had asked about her rank, that moment wasn't pride. It was pain refined into composure. The kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't need validation. The kind that comes from walking through fire and learning to speak only when it matters most. And as she sat down with her meal, the cafeteria still half, frozen in shock, she heard a sound she didn't expect. The same SEAL standing up, tray in hand, walking toward her. The room watched. He didn't speak loudly this time. His voice was low, steady. "Commander," he said, "I owe you an apology." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "You don't owe me anything," she replied simply. "Just learn to see people before you judge them." There was no anger in her tone, only truth. He nodded, slowly, the embarrassment giving way to a quiet respect. For the rest of that deployment, he would never forget her words, or the look in her eyes when she said them. Because the military teaches obedience. But leaders like her, Elara Stone, taught honor. Weeks later, during a joint operation overseas, Elara found herself leading the same man who had once mocked her. A rescue mission in hostile terrain, a compound hidden in the desert, guarded and rigged to explode. Fate has a way of testing lessons learned. Under fire, the team moved through corridors lined with shadows and dust. And when the first explosion tore through the building, the man, Sergeant Cole, was caught behind a fallen beam. The blaster trapped him, smoke choking the air. "Leave me," he shouted. "The timer's running out, go." But Elara didn't move. Her face was streaked with dirt, her uniform torn, but her eyes held that same unyielding calm from the cafeteria. "No one gets left behind," she said, her voice clear through the chaos. She wedged her shoulder under the metal, pushing with everything she had. The seconds bled away, the walls trembled, and finally, with a shattering crack, the beam gave way. She pulled him free just as the second explosion lit the night behind them. The shockwave threw them both into the sand outside, the sky burning orange. Cole coughed, staring at her, disbelief written across his soot, covered face. Why'd you come back?" She looked at him, breathless but steady. "Because one day, someone did the same for me, and I couldn't save him, but I can save you." That night, when they returned to base, Cole stood in front of her, not as a soldier reporting to a superior, but as a man acknowledging something greater than authority. "Commander," he said quietly, "you taught me what real rank means." Elara gave a faint smile. "It's not on the shoulder," she said. "It's in the choices we make when no one's watching." The story spread as stories do, whispered from one unit to the next. Not because of medals or promotions, but because in a world built on hierarchy, she reminded them that respect is not demanded. It's earned in silence, sacrifice, and truth. And though she would never speak of it herself, every soldier who had once laughed now stood a little straighter when she passed. The cafeteria where it began would never sound the same again, because sometimes one quiet answer can echo louder than a lifetime of noise.